All right. Are we live? What's going on, everybody?
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Howdy.
How's it going?
All right. We got the whole gang here tonight. We are going to talk about MOYAK and its 10th year of competition here in Missouri, how it got started and the people that were involved and made it happen to where it is today. Welcome, guys. We've got Jeff Mellencamp with us, Ty Ward, Troy Enke, Trey Dawson, and the founder of MOYAK, Eric Hansen. So welcome, guys.
Thank you.
All right, so I guess we'll just get into the conversation here. Eric, thanks for joining us tonight. You're the reason that any of us are here right now. So you want to talk a little bit about how MOYAK got started and how that all came to be at the very beginning?
Yeah, it was kind of, we never really set out to have a back, I think it was 2013, 2014. Never really set out to jump in and have this big, tournament series. It just kind of happened in a way that the right people, I kind of came in front of the right people, and they pushed me along and told me that we needed to move forward with it in Missouri. That was the early days of kayak fishing back when we did. Everybody had to submit their photos on a SD card or a USB drive, and we had to upload them into a computer and go through each photo manually. It was a long process, but kind of back when that started, it was. I kind of explained it to you, Josh, a little bit. I was doing some kayak fishing, some guided trips, and I met a guy walked into my shop that by the name of Jeff Smart and asked me to take him on a fishing trip. He needed to go catch some bass, and so we went down Lake Taneycomo. I took him back into Bull Creek, pitching square bills at the stumps and run those flats back there. And when we got done, he said I needed to come up to Lake Wanahoo and fish the live event for the kayak or the Midwest Kayak Fishing Series. At that time, I think it was 2013, 2014. Raph Vargas was putting that tournament on with the help of Marty Hughes and Kayak Jack. And when he was back doing his heavy guide, he was guiding pretty heavy back there in Nebraska at the time. And I drove all the way up to Lake Wanahoo and never met any of these guys, and showed up on the ramp with my kayak and met Marty Hughes for the first time, met Kevin Workman for the first time. Spencer Jones was heavily involved back then. Raph Vargas, James Francis, and we had a shotgun start on Lake Wanahoo, and that was back of the old style of kayak fishing. And when we got done, James Francis won that event, and he pretty sure James Francis won that live event, but he took the overall title that year for the first year for Midwest Kayak Fishing. And afterwards, we had the award ceremony, and Marty Hughes was there, and got to talking with him, and that's when he pushed me hard. He said, "You need to open up a shop. You need to open up, you need to open it up. You need to get it going down in Missouri, get some guys together and make it happen." And that next month, it might have been about I went home, kind of mulled it over a little bit, thought about it. At the time, I was just renting kayaks out and doing some guided fishing. Never really had much of a shop at the time. And I think it was about a month later, Marty had the Pony Creek tournament in Iowa, I think it was just south of Glenwood there. And myself and Heath Hudson and Jerry Ward and Richie Laffery, we all drove up there and fished that tournament. And again, they're telling us we need to start something in Missouri. So on the way home, we all brainstormed and started pitching ideas, and we got back to Missouri. And around that time, I I got just a message from an individual by the name of Brian Hillman, and he asked me, he goes, "Hey, you want to go fish sometime together?" And I never met this guy, and we started talking on the phone, and we met up here at Springfield Lake and in south of Springfield and at the dam, and we put in and floated all the way down to Carson's nursery, fished that evening. It got dark. I had a headlamp. I asked Brian if he brought a headlamp. He didn't bring a headlamp. We were running that river in the dark down through there, and got done, and his wife picked us up, and so about that time when we started putting this tournament together and we were thinking about it, I reached out to Brian to see if he'd be interested in kind of jumping in. I was just trying to build a team of individuals that wanted to see this through, and Brian was a big key factor there in the beginning with his connections to Bass Pro. And then we decided we were going to put a board together. And that's when Ty, I reached out to Ty and asked Ty if he wanted to be on the board for Show Me Kayak Fishing Association. Because he had same thing. I met Ty as he come down and wanted to do a guided trip with his son earlier that year. And that's how I met him. And so Ty was part of that first group. Jim Harding, I've known Jim for years, and he was always with me doing stuff. And we had a small little benefit tournament at one point to raise some money just for some, nonprofit, get kids outside, that sort of stuff. And back then, Dynamic Earth and those guys got involved. They gave away a kayak to us, and Jim won that. I think that tournament actually was the very first live event that ever happened in Missouri. We launched right off of Indian Point there at White Wing Resort, and Jim won that kayak and that tournament. But yeah, I mean, at that point, that team kind of consisted of myself and Jim Harding and Heath Hudson, Ty Ward, Brian Hillman, Richie, and we started putting ideas together. We started getting dates together. I think our first live event was Ha Ha Tonka there at Lake of the Ozarks. Dorman Huey, I had met Dorman at the time, and I knew him and knew he always wanted to get into fishing. So I said, "Hey man, you need to come fish this tournament." And he's like, "I don't got a kayak." I said, "I got one for you." I gave him a kayak, and he won that event and never looked back.
That sounds like Dorman.
That's like Dorman fashion right there.
Yeah,
From the very beginning.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, I remember that tournament. Like we had, I think there were spoonbill that were out there in the main channel, ramming Richie in his kayak and about knocked him in the water. I mean, it was pretty wild. But I think we had guys hitting golf balls off one of the bluffs at us, and it was a pretty wild tournament. Back then we had we kind of set it up to where, I fished as well. I think that first event, I think Dorman won it. I think Brian might have took second. Jim was up there. And then I think fourth or fifth or something in that first tournament. I think we had like 20, maybe 25 guys. I mean, it wasn't very big, but and then we had another tournament down at Table Rock at White Wing, and during that time we had somebody that was kind of doing all the judging for us because we were all fishing. And then I think that third event was Stockton Lake, and that individual decided that he didn't want to partake anymore, didn't want to do the judging. So at that point I bowed out, and that's when I started doing all the judging and became the tournament director and ran everything. Ty actually won that Stockton Lake tournament, if you remember.
That's a long time ago.
It was long. I think that was 2015.
Yep.
It might have been. I don't know. It was a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how everything got started there. It was just a group of guys that wanted to see something happen. Honestly, like all the tournaments were happening in Arkansas. I think that was Razor Yak series. I think that's what it was called back then. Northwest Arkansas, Jeff Malott. I think they were in their second year. Marty and those guys were pushing us to get something going, and I was just like, let's do it. And it was simple back then. I mean, it wasn't, but it was. I mean, well, one of the biggest things I'll never forget was Brian came in. We had a meeting at my house. We were all sitting in the basement, and he comes in. He goes, Bass Pro wants to own this. And we hadn't even had a tournament yet. And I said, what? They want to own it. He goes, they want to own it. They want their name on it. I said, well, we kind of talked about it. And Popper wrote, I think it's Papa Chops. You guys, I can't remember his name. He ran that tournament of champions down in Texas back then. And he had a rod and reel repair. And I remember he was getting big time, like $10,000, title sponsorships. So I asked him, I said, what do you want? Like, they want to own it. And he goes, make them buy it. And so Brian came back in that meeting, and I said, yeah, they can own it for $10,000. And he's like, they're not going to buy that. And I said, they want to own it for $10,000. It's theirs. So we hadn't even had a tournament yet. But he pitched it back to them, and they come back with $10,000 worth of merchandise for that first year. So we gave them title sponsorship. They gave us a kayak for every tournament, GoPros, bags. I mean, they hooked us up that first year. So
that's how the MOYAK raffles kind of began right there. Was
with
that deal that's kind of been going on ever since.
So I got that idea from that Best Damn Tackle Box from Midwest Kayak Series. They did that up there, and I always thought that was pretty cool. So I
still try to do it, but I forget a lot of times.
You said the Show Me Kayak Fishing Association. What is that? And is that still around?
No, it was a board. We set that up in the beginning as a board because we set it up as a nonprofit, kind of. Back, when Josh took it over, there was there was some things that kind of happened there with another group of guys, and we just kind of at that time we were just like, we're going to undo Show Me Kayak Fishing Association. I was still in charge of the nonprofit, and my name was on it and everything. I just said, Josh, here you go, man. I said, you got it. I said, you're going to be the one that runs this. I said, and honestly, I thought about it. I talked to Brian about it, and I said, what do you think of just giving this to Josh and letting Josh take this and run with it? And honestly, it was the best thing for MOYAK.
So how did you hear about it, Josh? Like from that time where he gave it to you, and you were like that tournament Taiwan, and there was like 4 events there, and then Bass Pro got involved. How did you get involved, Josh?
Right shortly after that, it was 2016. It was Table Rock out of Indian Point. That was the first tournament I ever fished with them guys. And
was that when Manley and those guys came down or came up from kayak?
Yeah, I think so.
It was Kayak Fishing Series, and Justin I think it's Justin Spratley, I think it was his name, and Terry Manley. He had the Manley rods back then. But we ran a tournament in conjunction with them on Table Rock. I don't know if that was the first event that you fished, Josh, or not. But
I think it was. I was even late to the captain's meeting, and I was in my little crappy kayak, and I was so nervous, and I tried to paddle across the lake, and I only had one pole with me, but I still won big bass, and man, I've been hooked ever since. I love the sport. That
first kayak, wasn't it an Old Town? It was a blue Old Town sit-in.
Yes, it was.
12 foot
10
long.
Foot. It was 10. It was only 10 footer.
Yeah.
I barely fit in the dang thing. I had like a 3-inch little fish finder on there.
So was that tournament at Tonka, was that Dorman's first kayak tournament? Had he fished out of a kayak before, or
no?
Had he just...
never. Never. I mean, I think he might have. Well, no, I take that back. He went out a couple times with me prior to that, just fishing for fun. But that was his first tournament. Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, Dorman grew up fishing, like his dad and his uncles. I mean, yeah, won 6 since 2019. I mean, he's that's got. I mean, the guy was born with a fishing rod in his hand.
He pretty much won every fishing kayak. I think I won one. He won, I think, all the rest. So
yeah. So that was. I mean, that second tournament was when the Ned rig was big. We were fishing Table Rock, and Ty was out there just I think Ty got second or third out there at that Table Rock tournament. I don't think he left 100 feet from the ramp, just throwing a Ned rig.
Nope.
So, but yeah, back then it was all shotgun start, and I mean, it made it fun. We all launched from the same place and came back to the same place, but it definitely made it equal waters for sure. So
no pedals, no motors. It was just arms and paddle.
Yeah, there was no technology back then, really. It was just.
And we would paddle a mile. I mean, we'd paddle a mile, 2 miles, just trying to,
Yeah.
And
I got in good shape that year. I finally started getting some exercise.
Were there any rules or regulations that you guys were doing different than whatever the national kayak scene looked like at the time? Like things
we pretty much followed the national standard, I guess you could call it, from kayak bass fishing. Because that time Chad Hoover was big, and he was throwing he was doing kayak bass fishing series. It wasn't nothing what it is now. I mean, or what it grew into. But like the standards on judging photos, it was always tail fanned, mouth closed. That was how it started, and that's the way we kept it for years. And as that kind of changed and the tournament grew, that's kind of, it got to be a lot, got to be stressful being the tournament director, judge, jury, executioner, I guess you could say. So,
because at that time we had to write everything down on a piece of paper for our 5 top fish. And we had to submit that and the USB or whatever our drives to you.
Yeah, there was no Tourney X back then. That came later. Things got way better when Tourney X finally came out.
Yeah. That Pony Creek tournament I went to, I didn't even get to submit any fish that day because the morning of the tournament I dropped my phone in the scrapper. Sorry if I can't. But yeah, it fell right in that crapper, that campground. And I went out and fished anyways, but didn't submit no photos.
That's what's because I ask myself these days, if somebody did that, how many people just wouldn't fish that day? They would just not go fish. And that's where where do you lose the passion for just fishing compared to just competitive tournament fishing? Because a lot of guys would either try to drive and go get a new phone and not fish at all. Yeah. And so that's cool.
Yeah. Back then, it honestly, it was competitive, but it wasn't competitive. It wasn't, we were competitive as friends and just joshing each other more than anything. And just giving each other, hey, I beat you, or hey, I got the bigger fish, or whatever. It wasn't, there were some guys that took it more serious, but it started off as just fun, and just fun and just like competitive. It wasn't about just winning all the time, I guess, because we weren't winning, or we weren't giving away, large sums of cash. We were giving away prizes and doing raffles, and pretty much everybody walked away with something. So.
Josh's wife says it started because I wanted kayaks because I wanted to look for cool rocks, but Josh always controlled the canoe. So I was at his mercy shortly after getting the kayaks, and he saw a post from MOYAK on Facebook and jumped on it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
No, I think it was a lot of fun in the beginning. It really was.
I think that
I'm
same
not saying
kind of
it's not
attitude
now.
still
You
here.
know, it's just it was. We had a lot of fun back then. You know, and so
I think that kind of still is the kind of way it is in MOYAK. Everybody's, you know, there's a competitiveness, but everybody's still friends out there and willing to help each other out. It's not cutthroat or anything like that. So that is a difference that we have what I've seen from other series that I fished in. You know, some of those tournaments, you know, those guys are just tight-lipped about everything. They don't even want to hide their lures from you, so you can't see what they're throwing. You know, guys in MOYAK will just tell you what they're throwing. Give you a lure if you ask for them, you know.
Yeah, I do have one story from that first year that I'll never forget, and it was I might have been after the Stockton tournament, or I don't know. Stockton might have been our fourth event that year, Ty, because I remember we went up to Tebow and fished Truman Lake, and we went to Tebow Arm, and
Tebow Lodge.
Yep. And yeah, we won't even go there. We'll just go to the fishing. But we all went out and fished. I think Dorman won that tournament again. He went back to that quarry way back in the back that was flooded, throwing a spinner bait. And I think that's how he won that tournament. But after that tournament was over, we a bunch of us, I think it was Brian, myself, I don't know if Jim was with me. I can't remember who all. I think Jim was there.
Yeah,
but we decided we were going to go do some more fishing. And we went way up. I think we might have went way up into Tebow Arm, like into the river. But Brian had modified his kayak to give him like an elevated seat platform in his ascent. It was a FS12T, I believe. And he modified that seat to give him higher seating. But what he didn't realize was that he changed the pressure points of those legs in that seat. And so he had a rubber mat down where he couldn't see it, but he had made a small little crack in that seat well, and he didn't know it was there. And we're running up the river fishing, and he's behind me, and I'm fishing a bank, and he's behind me, and I hear him like paddling up to me, and I'm like, he's coming up, so I paddle more farther, trying to get away from him, and all of a sudden he goes, I think I got water in my kayak. I'm like, what? I kind of turn around, he's like, I think I got water in my kayak. I said, it'll be fine. And we're probably in about 10, 15 feet of water, and I'm fishing this bluff, and he's like coming right up to me. He's like, I'm going under. I'm sinking. And I look back, and his kayak like was listing to the right. It was in the air, and I jumped out on a little ledge, threw my kayak up on the shelf of the ledge, and reached out and grabbed his just as his kayak was sinking, and yanked it up on that bluff. And yeah, his kayak broke in that seat, and the water was splashing up through those scupper holes, flooding his kayak, and he didn't know it. And he just about sunk that kayak out there, and he had so much gear out there.
I bet.
So.
Wow. Troy, you got any questions for Eric?
How in the world did you guys do it at awards? How long did that take? And how many anglers did you guys average that first couple of years? Was it 10 or 15 guys? And how long did it take at awards?
I'd say we probably were averaging in the beginning. It was 15 to 20. And then by the end of the year, I think we were up to like 20, 25 consistently. We got it down to where I was able to go through photos pretty quick. But typically, like judging, it took me, I don't know, Ty, you remember 45 minutes to an hour?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
To judge the photos. And the way we did it back then, if I remember right, like you'd have to submit your 5 photos, your ID card with the number of the number for the photo, and then the inches. And so we could add it up pretty quickly beforehand before having to go through every single photo. And then I was just looking through, top 10 guys, verifying, making sure that fish weren't the same, making sure they were different pictures, looking at markings on the fish, mouth closed, tail open, making sure photos met criteria, and then
so
we'd be.
If you
there was no pulling.
If you had a problem with a fish being his mouth too open or the tail wrong, you had an immediate conflict with that angler right there.
Yeah.
On site.
Yeah, we were DQing fish right there, right then and there.
Oh my word.
I mean, like one of the biggest ones that I remember, and again, and I think it was Dorman. He had a problem with his camera, and like photos were blurry, and I had to DQ every one of his fish that tournament because every one of I couldn't see the lines. I couldn't see the markings on the fish. I couldn't see the markings on the board. I couldn't because the photos were blurry, and I think he might have gotten water splashed on the lens or something. Yeah, that sucked.
Oh man.
And so yeah, like you get guys that are mad at you, and yeah.
Well, in those old catch boards we had, or the old hog troughs, we had to draw the lines with markers so you could see them, and they'd wear off, and you couldn't see them.
Yeah, there wasn't the equipment back then. The industry moved with the tournament and moved with the moved with the needs of what we figured out was necessity to be able to make these tournaments efficient. So, the first boards were, hog troughs or fish, sticks or rulers that we had, and you couldn't see the lines, and you had to mark them, and then guys, some of they were bringing. I don't know how many guys were losing. They're measuring devices while they're out there. Guys were buying, they were coming to tournaments with 2-3 of them in there just so they have an extra one in case something happened and one went overboard.
Yeah, they were a little brittle, the hog troughs. I've had a few of those. Did you guys ever have any benefit tournaments back in the day?
I think we did. I can't think of any right off the top of my head. But yeah, I'm pretty sure we did, didn't we, Ty?
Yeah, I was thinking we did one or two for like fundraisers for some fellow kayakers that were in need and stuff, if I remember right.
Yeah, we did some. We would hold tournaments, but we'd also hold like side pots, I think, too, and we did some benefit stuff. And yeah, Norman said we did work with Wounded Warriors a lot there in the beginning.
You need to send Dorman the StreamYard link and get him in here.
Yeah, he was big in the beginning. So
that's cool.
Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff, tell us about how you came in and what was your role in this? You're still fishing now, am I right? You still fishing?
I've taken an early retirement for a few years while my kids were in high school, trying not to miss any of their events. So they've been keeping me busy. So I'll be back in about 3 more years.
Nice.
So I'll be back. I'll be back. I may make a surprise visit here and there, but yeah, my summers were taken up with baseball, travel ball. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I got started 2018, I think it was.
I was gonna say it's like the 3rd year, 4th year. It might have been 2017.
I went back and had to look at Tourney X today. I think 2018 is when I first got started, and I went out to Big Hill, Kansas for my first tournament, and it was sleeting the night before and 20 degrees at the ramp the next morning. Didn't catch a single fish. Lost my fishing pole right in the first spot I went to. yeah, so it was miserable. Didn't catch fish. I did hook up with Josh Booth. I messaged him on Facebook, if I remember right, because he was fishing out of the same type of kayak I was, and I think he just came off of winning the series, MOYAK series, the year before. I just kind of picked his brain, asked him what, some tips and stuff, and we ended up meeting one day at Stockton to do some fishing, and I was hooked right away, and fished the whole season. Fished a lot of the online stuff on Tourney X and that other people had set up, and yeah, that's how I just got hooked right away, and got to talking to the guys, and then like 2019 is when I kind of really felt like I could maybe help and do whatever I could to help grow the sport in Missouri.
Nice. So all you guys started, Troy, all you guys started in a kayak. I don't know. I'm asking, like, did you guys start in a kayak when you first started bass fishing? Did you start in a bass boat? Were you, so like, did you like Chad Davison's story, bass tournaments. I know his story pretty well, but did you guys just start kayaks and kayak fish, or what did that transition look like for you guys from either the boat world or the bank to the kayak? Like, what got you guys into that? Like that day you were like, man, I'm going to go buy a kayak, with maybe not even knowing about kayak tournaments or anything like that.
I mean, for me, my wife wanted the family to have a hobby. So I went to the kayak shop here at the lake, and I bought 4 kayaks for the family, and they were just, river kayaks. And I went out and I'm like, well, this is fun, but I'm going to take a fishing pole. I wasn't I didn't fish much. When I was younger, I did at the golf course ponds where you could throw anything and get a bite. But that'd been years since I'd ever fished at all. And I got out there in my river kayak, and I'm like, man, this is fun, but I want more room, a bigger kayak. And so I went and got another kayak, and I was hooked. It was the best therapy for my days off from work, is just to get out on the water. With me living here at Lake of the Ozarks, that's I can get to the water in 5-10 minutes. So that's how I got hooked.
How about you, Troy?
I started in.
There he is.
Hey, is that
What's
normal?
up, fellas?
It is. Oh.
Nice. In about
What's happening, guys?
2015, I started fishing as a co-angler in bass tournaments in the Midwest, the Costa Series and the local BFLs back when they had those. And my third year of doing that, I got paired up with Dion Hibden's boy up at Lake of the Ozarks, and it was a springtime event, and it was a bed fishing deal. So I got to watch him bed fish all day, and I decided right then that 3 years of being a co-angler was enough. And I started watching some of Greg's videos on YouTube, and I didn't even realize that you could stand up and fish out of a kayak. I thought, when I thought of a kayak, I thought of a sit-in kayak. So I got on Facebook and struck up a couple conversations, and then some old boy named Jeff Moncamp called me out of the blue, and
No, I thought you called me.
Well, I think you said call me. Here's my number. But we spent probably 45 minutes on the phone, and he talked me into getting into MOYAK, and it's been a great time. And I want to thank all you founding members for starting this for us, because this gives me something to look forward to, gives me something to unplug, and really enjoy myself. And if it wasn't for this, I'd probably still be barbecuing, competition barbecue. But this is a lot more fun, and a lot better group of guys and gals. So thank you to all you OGs, and welcome to the chat.
Because me personally, when I first started, which I'm still so new, maybe a year or two, I was fishing a USA Bassin tournament on Truman, and I didn't really know what to do, man. I didn't know, like, I knew how to fish from a bank okay, and I had watched some of your videos where you were putting that motor on your, it was an NK 180 or something I was putting on there, and I messaged you, I was like, man, this dude is the real deal. And I kind of got, I was really kind of focused on you for a while. I was watching your stuff and watching these videos that you're put up about your motor and stuff. And I messaged you and just said, hey, I really don't know what I'm doing, what I'm going to do. Can you give me some advice? And before I knew it, you like screenshotted me like this example of like a cove, and really just showed me you even made little pinpoints on like where, like the points, like secondary points, what them were, what that looked like, and what you would do if you were me. And dude, that right there just showed me that, that was really, really cool to me. Like you being there, that meant a lot. That genuinely meant a lot to me.
That's awesome. Well, I can teach you where to find the drum. I don't know about the bass, but I can find those drums.
And then Ty Ward, I seen him for really the first time at the All-American. And I pull up to the ramp and I see him decked out in this BizBaits, and I'm a BizBait fanboy, and I'm like, man, this dude is a pro, bro. He's all got and I was like infatuated with him. I was like, dude, this is super cool. And and you guys that know my story just know, I look up to you guys, man. And it seems like you guys are always willing to help somebody out that maybe is not as far as you guys are. So that's what really brought it into me. What about you, Ty? What was your first? Why'd you decide to kayak?
Well, I grew up trout, salmon, steelhead fishing in Idaho and California and Oregon, but a little bit of bass fishing and crappie fishing with a buddy before moving out here out of his boat. But moved out here and fished from shore at Lake of the Ozarks at my in-laws' place for quite a few years, and really wanted to get out on the water. And everybody with boats kept saying, oh yeah, I'll take you out. And then nobody would ever take me out. And so one day I got on Facebook and I saw an ad pop up from this guy in the middle here, Eric. And I thought, I'm going to go take my son for a kayak trip. Never been on a kayak other than one little teeny one down a little creek the youth group went on. And so I got a hold of Eric and set up an appointment to go out, and he took us out on Taneycomo. And I think if I can see Troy's shirt there, I think that's our old logo, which I designed. That's actually my son's silhouette when Eric took us out on Taneycomo when I designed that logo. So that's kind of how we got started. I actually got sick. It was, to be honest, for me, fishing wise, it was horrible, but it was a trip that I actually absolutely fell in love with it. And Eric invited me to be part of the board to help with the website at that time and some of the graphics and stuff, because I was into that stuff. And so I remember that first tournament up. If I remember right, the first tournament up at Lake of the Ozarks at Hawatonka was freezing that morning, and the gate was closed and we couldn't get in. So we all had to sit there and wait until they got the gate open. And the river, if I remember, the lake was flooding and it was like dark chocolate brown. And Eric was letting me borrow, what was that company that kayak you let me borrow? It was
I had a bunch of Ascend kayaks, and then I had Malibu kayaks back then.
Yeah. Wasn't that one? It was the company out of Texas, I think. It was a big flash. I remember. What?
Diablo. It was the Diablo.
Diablo.
Yes. Yeah. And it was freezing that morning, and I put the kayak, because they don't have a ramp there at Hawatonka, and so we had a little area that we could walk out to get on. And my deck was iced over, and the first step on, I just about went in the lake, getting on the kayak. And so that was my first tournament experience. I don't think I did very well that tournament, but I stayed afloat and didn't sink. But ever since then, I just fell in love with it. And it's something I heard it by a bunch of the guys here. It's just kind of their getaway. This is my getaway. I love it. It's my passion now. And I thank Eric for that, because, he really instilled that in his passion for the sport. And definitely those early days with Eric and Dorman and everybody just really instilled the joy of it and the camaraderie with everybody. And I know through the years we've had little bumps and stuff, but it's still there. I still love it. I still love being part of it with all the guys, and especially like Jeff. Hadn't seen you for quite a while. Great to see you on here and being part of this. So, and Eric, I haven't talked to you in a long time either. Dorman, hopefully you're coming back soon. So just it's been a blast, and I've loved it. And I actually just was down here at Tractor Supply 2 days ago, and was talking with one of the sales guys there, and we got into kayak fishing, and he was literally signing up to become a new member. While I was standing there, and he's from Louisiana. He was just totally excited. So just being able to share that passion with others is what it's all about. So,
yeah, The whole kayak fishing thing back in 2013, 2014. I mean, that was the inception days of kayak fishing with KBF and like I said, Midwest Series, Raph Vargas. I don't know if you guys are familiar with who Raph Vargas is, but he was with Select Sail and Paddle Sports, and he was in the Air Force. And that guy's gone all over the world, to Guam, to Vietnam, and fish, and like deep sea fishing, to muddy waters of Nebraska, but I moved from Iowa down here in 2005, and I grew up fishing muddy waters, ponds, lakes. When we moved down here, we had a little bass boat that I fished up, 100-acre lakes. It was a little 14-foot bayliner fishing ski. I moved down here, put it on Table Rock. I was like, man, this boat's not made for this lake. I sold it, and I switched up all my gear that year when in 05, 06, and I just started walking rivers with ultralights and plastics and jigs, and I'd watch. I've never fished clear water before, and I just started watching how the fish reacted to those lures, and then we started doing overnight trips, me and some buddies, and we would go do 2-3 days out of canoes on the rivers and camp and fish and eat and cook and eat like kings, and we did that late 2000, 8, 9, and that's just kind of where the kayaks came in for me. It was just I bought a canoe, then I bought a kayak. I think I traded a gun for a kayak in 2012. Came home, my wife was mad at me. We were broke, we were poor, young, and she's like, "What did you spend that? What did you spend money on that for?" I said, "I didn't. I traded a gun for it." And then, it just kind of from there, it just became a passion. I attribute it to more of float fishing. That's where it came to become a passion for me. I could spend days on a river by myself and be content, out of a kayak. So
Dorman. I have not had the chance of meeting you yet. I did. The first time I guess I met you was that tackle incident that happened a few years ago, and was getting
yes, sir.
Yep. And ever since then, dude, I've heard tons of stuff about you. But they were talking about how, like, when you first went to Hawatonka, he brought you a kayak to use. Was that your first time in a kayak? And if not, like, what was the difference in how you typically fish and getting into a kayak? Like, what was?
I actually started off on the banks. Yeah, I walked the banks a lot. It didn't matter if it was a creek or lake or pond or whatever it was. If there was water there, I was usually casting at it. That's how I grew up. I never had a boat of any kind or any of that good stuff. And then once Eric let me have a chance to borrow one of his and bring me into the whole thing, I just took off. But yeah, Eric let me borrow the kayak that I won my first kayak tournament on, which is the very first tournament that I ever fished out of a kayak.
FS10.
Yep, no sit-in.
Man, I can remember kayaks.
Norman, you grew up in did you grow up fishing Taneycomo? Is that your
Taneycomo, Bull Shoals, Table Rock, the Tri-Lakes. I grew up here in Taney County, so I was pretty short distance to all of them. But
what's your PB, Dorman?
Inches or weight?
Let's go both.
I've 23 and around 10 pounds. And both those came out of Taney. Yes, sir.
Do you believe fishing Taney a lot? Do you believe that the next state record in Missouri will come out of Taney?
Yeah, I do. I really do. It's getting hammered a lot more now. It's not nearly as easy to catch for those great big ones as it used to be.
Yeah, the secret's out.
The secret is out for sure. And there's a lot of people actually coming down, actually trying to catch the state record out of Taneycomo. That's all they're fishing for.
Yeah.
Troy,
So-
you might catch that this
Got a couple
weekend.
10-pounders out of there.
I hope so.
Yeah, we'll be down there this weekend on Taneycomo, so hopefully the weather. It looks like a nice week, so we might have a nice tournament down
Yeah,
there.
it's supposed to be real nice. I'm gonna try to get down to see you guys too.
Awesome.
How's your health, Norman? You going to come back soon?
Probably not for a little while. I just had a defibrillator put in the 27th of January, so yeah, it's not going great, but you know, it's not getting any worse either.
We
I
miss
just got to
you.
keep my head up and keep going.
That's right. Keep paddling.
Yep, that's all I can do. Actually, I haven't even been able to do that any year, it seems like.
We'll get stronger and get back
So
out on the
I might
water.
have to find something with. I might have to find something with the trolling motor.
Hey, Dorman, if you can drop some wisdom on us and tell us, for maybe somebody out there that's thinking about, hasn't really fished a lot, or maybe going to get into kayak fishing and maybe just don't feel confident to do it, and maybe just doesn't think they have what it takes to do it. Can you just give us a little bit of wisdom on what you would say to them?
It seems like everybody's going to all these electronics and everything has to match. And I mean, all this money just getting dumped into these things. I go with a hodgepodge set of fishing poles, some tackle, and a paddle. You don't have to have all that fancy stuff to go out and catch a fish, to even compete with fishermen.
Is a cigarette mandatory or not?
Not anymore. I've actually quit. So not anymore. Back in the day, yeah, it had to be there. The cigarette pack had to be between my legs right there. Yeah. Almost every picture I turned in back in the day had a cigarette pack sitting between my legs.
Nice.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I'll tell you what I miss is the shotgun starts. Those was always fun.
Yep.
Yeah, this will be the first time I've ever. This weekend will be the first, and this just tells you my age, I guess, and how new I actually am. This weekend, Saturday morning, will be the first time I've ever I've done a shotgun start. Even though I'm third out the gate, my kayak's so slow. I'm probably like four, probably whatever fourth place is out. But
As long as you're ahead of Lance, you should be okay by about an hour.
Is Lance fishing this weekend, Josh?
No, he's not.
Oh, well, yeah, there you
go. I'll tell you this. You don't have to go very far from that ramp to catch a good fish.
That's what I heard.
Hush.
I heard, Norman.
Norman, don't give it up.
I'll second that. I mean, I'll second that one.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eric.
Josh, we got Dorman on tomorrow. Is Dorman on the Tanny 20 preview?
I'm not sure. You have to have Johnston about that.
Well, if he's not Dorman, give us one piece of juice. You're going to fish Tanny this weekend, and you can only bring one bait with you. What do you bring?
Man, I don't know if I want to give that juice away or not, because that's what I've actually caught a lot of fish on in that lake, and a lot of people don't know about it.
Good name.
Nice try, Trey.
All right, I tried. Hey guys, I tried. People text me and asked me to ask Dorman that question. I tried. I didn't want to know personally. I already know. I'm about to win.
We'll say plastics. We'll just say plastics.
All right. That's fair enough.
There you go. We'll just say plastics.
10XD, you'll be good.
Yeah, right. Being on the grass.
Jerk bait.
What's funny is I have fished jerk baits shallow over the top of that grass and caught quite a few good ones. Talking about jerk bait and grass.
See, I know what everybody fished with back in the day, because they would all
It hasn't changed a whole lot.
Well, we've been on here for almost an hour. Does anybody have anything they want to add real quick before we wrap this up?
I'm good This was awesome.
I don't think
Josh,
so.
all I want to say is you done a great job with this over the last, how many years of taking it over and grown it. And out of anybody when we handed it off to you, I mean, there was we chose right. So good job with that.
Yep, done a great job, Josh.
Yeah, hats off to you, Josh.
Thanks, man. It's been a fun ride for sure. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy the sport, and I'm glad to have met every single one of you guys along the way. So, all right, I hear the finishing music, so I guess we're out of here, guys. Thanks
Norman,
for
I'd like
joining
to
us.
see you on Saturday, man. Try to make it down, bud.
I'm gonna try to.
Well, good luck, everybody, this weekend.
Saturday.
So,
Good seeing y'all.
Yep.
You too. Good luck, fellas.
Night.
See you guys later.